What's up, guys? Welcome back. I'm here tonight with Marvin Wynn, creator of The Edge, which is a very interesting comic. So I'm going to let him introduce himself and explain who he is and what he does.
Right. So my name is Marvin Wynn. I am the writer and creator of The Edge, currently being published by Second Sight Publishing. Issue number one was released in March 24th. We are gearing up for the release of issue two that's coming in the next previews. The basis of the story is the Edge is a drug that gives powers, but while you use those powers, it drains you and then you die.
Wow, that's very cool. Um, yeah, I didn't get to actually read most of it, but I did flip through it, and I think from the get go, like the name The Edge, it sounds very 90s. And then as I read through the book, like it has like that late 80s and like all through the 90s kind of like extreme action and stuff, you
Mhm.
know? So I guess what are your influences on this book? Where did this idea come from?
Right. So I mean that immediate thing, like my influences was the Image Revolution in the '90s. Your Jim Lee, your Rob Liefeld, X-Men, Wildcat, Stormwatch, all those characters, things like that. So that was a big influence for me because I started reading comics in the '80s and didn't really get really deep into them until like the early '90s when that stuff was going on, and it influenced me actually to start writing this book. So I think I started writing it around 94, 95. And like I tell everybody that it wasn't very good. So let people know that the first thing you always do is not going to be good. So just keep cranking it out and keep trying because you never know how far it'll take you.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. Um, yeah, I mean, that's a great influence, you know, because I see a lot of that. I mean, it reminds me of like G.I. Joe in some
Yeah.
moments.
Mm-hmm.
There's kind of like some kind of spy and espionage stuff going on in there. Kind of reminds me of like Batman, kind of like grounded, stealthy type characters, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really interesting. It looks like there's a lot going on that you can draw influence from in the
Yeah.
modern comics and what you know what the 90s were for superheroes. They were bombastic and they were
Yeah.
full of action. And this book, I mean, everything I flipped through, it looks just as fun as any of that stuff. So I guess you're hitting the nail on the head for your influences.
Right. I mean, it's a good thing that you say that it's bombastic because a lot of stuff is happening is over the top, and it's just that fun factor that some people might say is missing from a lot of the mainstream superhero titles. But I mean, we're not just the superhero titles. We have a lot of sci-fi, a little bit of thriller, and a lot of things being mixed in together. Like you said, with that espionage, with our character Revenant, who is the want to say he's the withholder of the secrets of the Edge, and he's out in the wild. And his former handlers don't want him out in the wild because he has a tendency to run his mouth and talk about a lot of things he shouldn't be talking about. And what could happen if someone actually captures him and gets him an autopsy or dissects him and finds out where this Edge actually came from, because it's not going to be a good thing for anyone to find out about him, the Edge, or anything that are going on in the background here.
Yeah. So I guess like how expansive is this world? Because it seems pretty big. Like there could be a lot of different aspects of Earth this is taking place in.
Right. So I think that as far as the size, I mean, we've got a huge roster of characters, but everything builds organically. It's not just page one, issue one. Here's 80 people you need to take stock of. I mean, we start off on issue one with the team being pretty small. In issue two, we bring in a few other characters that are part of the team that weren't part of the original mission. But it's a slow build to getting to the roster that we're going to have of characters, and they're not just archetypes of other superhero characters. I mean, there's some influence mixed in, but it's not just your Batman guy, your Superman guy, or your Wonder Woman character. It's the characters have depth, they have personalities, and we're going to put them through the ringer a lot to find out how this Edge affects them and the world around them. And what we're doing to do in later is you want to take one of the character's powers away from him and dare him to get them back.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you said there though, because I'm a big fan of nuance. You know,
Hmm.
I get caught up doing more than my fair share of like comic book reviews and
Yeah.
stuff. You know, and one thing that frustrates me is like the numbering system, because people are like, oh, it's a 7 out of 10. Well, everybody's seven is different. You know, you never know
Right.
what the baseline is. And so for me, like I think of reviews like it's all in the nuance. You know,
Yeah.
and when you look at like storytelling and these characters, they're always kind of going to be an archetype of something else somewhere, you know, like it's always
Mhm.
going to be pulling influences because
Right.
everything's been done technically, you know, but whenever you get into the nuance of the character and how their
Mhm.
story is told and how their different facets and aspects of their character is explored, that's the nuance. That's where like the great characters come from.
Right. And I think that that's where you, when you're building something new, that kind of stuff comes in, where you allow somebody to, who's your favorite character, and then once that character becomes your favorite, we're going to screw them up and make something happen that you're probably not going to like about them later on. like as long as we've been doing this, even though that when we joined Second Sight, we started over with issue 1. We were almost getting ready to release issue 10 before COVID hit. So that kind of monkey wrenched our plans, which allowed me to do a little reflection on how we wanted to release this book going forward. Joining Second Sight allowed us to get into previews, which expanded the world to us around the world. So that was a big help to us, and it'll start to graft a lot of things together as we move forward with different characters and different situations. But the one thing that's been happening is Revenant has become a favorite of people, and I don't want to really like that. I don't want him to be anyone's favorite because he's a jerk. So I mean, we have him there, and we're going to take him off the board for a little bit, and then we're going to bring him back, and we're just going to play around with. Anytime somebody tells me the character's favorite, I'm going to try to do something to him to see if I can make them not their favorite.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's that makes it a lot of fun for the readers, you know, because now
Mm-hmm.
they're always going to be guessing where that character is headed.
Right, right. Like I said,
How
that
were you?
when we think, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to ask, how were you publishing before you got involved with Second Sight? Were you on
Uh,
Kickstarter or just independent?
we were just independent. We were self-publishing, so just churning out as many books as we could over the years. And like I said, that we were on the cusp of issue 10. We were actually doing a release party at a local shop here in New Dimension. And then when, like I said, COVID hit, that like monkey wrenched everything and threw everything into in flux, because it became that much harder to, like, because we were trying to get to stores. So we were contacting stores. We got a few leads on a few things, but I mean, that preview thing is always going to be that somewhat that barrier. Some stores say, oh, we're interested, but we want to order through previews. Are you in previews? So that opened that door again, because then I was ready to recontact those stores and say, hey, we're in previews now. So you remember you said you wanted to order some books?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of the big appeal that Scout Comics has brought to the table,
Mm-hmm.
because they typically work with these Kickstarter creators, you know, and so they have the Kickstarter audience and like the in-store diamond
Right.
previews customers. That's two different audiences, you know,
Yeah.
and so Scout's done a great job of being able to bring these Kickstarter projects and sell them to a whole new audience because they're so divided, you know, and so
Right.
that's got to be powerful for you to be with Second Sight and be able to get into the stores and the previews and everything, you know.
Right. It allows us to build a relationship not only with the customers, what we consider the readers, but also the customers as far as retailers, because the retailers are the ones that are going to push that book to their customers or someone who is unaware that this book even exists. And that was a lot of the feedback that I got when I was contacting stores, was that, oh, we really wouldn't have noticed this book if you wouldn't have contacted us about it. I mean, you're in this big, huge phone book with thousands and thousands of books, and you're trying to make yourself stand out from those other number one titles that came out in that same month. So we got a lot of momentum with issue 1. We did sell out, going to a second print, which should be coming right along with issue 2.
Wow, that's awesome. And that's only going to get bigger, you know, the more your audience expands. So that's really
Right.
cool. That's exciting news, man.
Right. So the next goal is issue 2, the double issue 1, then issue 3, the double issue 2. So I want to keep doubling and try to do better with each issue.
Yeah, understandable. Yeah, that's awesome. So, so I guess what is your process for creating the books? It sounds like you're doing a great job as a self-publisher of, kind of moving these along. A lot of times you see Kickstarter books and stuff. They only do like 1 or 2 Kickstarters a year, and they have this long assembly system of like do the campaign and collect the funds and print the book and then package all the different backer stuff, and get it all shipped out. So, how are you moving through the process of creating a book?
I think that we got a little lucky. Like I said, we actually started working on this book back in 2012. So in that time, we built up. Right now, we're currently finishing up issue 15, and there's 3 one-shots that we're working on also at the same time. So more than likely by August, we'll be in the can with a 15th, 16th, 17th issue and 3 one-shots that we're doing. So we're doing we're calling them gap books. So they take place in the gaps between the arcs. So between issue 4 and 5, between issues 9 and 10, there are stories that we wanted to do that didn't really fit into the main arc of the story we were doing, and it kind of grinded to a halt some of the stuff we wanted to do. So we decided just to pull it from the main story and then give it its own focus in these one shots. So the process, I mean, it's since we've started so early, and now that we're re-releasing issue 1, we've got a backlog of books. And I think that's where our piece is that we didn't really want to even push issue 1 out until issue 3 was done. So when we originally were running the public, we didn't do anything with issue 1 until issue 3 was done. We wanted to show not only the readers, but any retailers that were interested that we're in this for the long haul. It's not just going to be a 1 issue a year or 2 issues a year, that we're going to build up a backlog and then do a really good run of books releasing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Jeff Johns, he writes for DC and stuff, and he has a rough track record of getting his books out on time. Yeah. And so he recently released this independent title, Geiger, and I heard that they had to do Image had to do kind of a phone tour and call a lot of local shops and promise them that they already have 6 issues ready to go for stores to actually order it, because they were concerned about delays and everything again, So I think it's phenomenal that you, as a young creator and an independent creator, are taking the time to make sure you have a backlog and make sure that, things don't get away from you and you lose your audience to a big gap in release,
Right. And I mean, we kind of organically did that to ourselves, because the mistake we made was going quarterly with issue 2. So we accidentally did quarterly. That was a mistake on my part. But after that, we're going to go bi-monthly with releases. So there's going to be a gap. It was a gap between issue 1 and 2, which was my fault. I admit it. And the next issues will be ranking out pretty fast, because, like I said, we're so far ahead that as long as none of us get sick or there are any other kind of accidents or situations that come up, we want to have a book ready to release every other month.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that gives confidence to your readers, because nobody wants to not get to finish a story.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great information. And what is your role on the team? Are you just writing it, or do you work with the art and everything else?
Well, I'm just a writer, and Mark and I, usually the artists, work on the characters, and he's the primary designer. So most of the time, it's an effort on both of our parts to give these characters a voice, and not just say that they're just this power and this ethnicity or these things. Is like we have to give them a personality to go with that, and say that if they're in this situation, they'll do this. If they're in this situation, they won't do this. So it's a lot of back and forth, and I appreciate his help on fleshing out these characters sometimes, because sometimes I don't even have any idea on sometimes what they should or shouldn't be doing in these situations, because we try to put these characters in like really unique situations. Like I said, this Edge thing isn't permanent, and we're going to have a few characters coming out that are at the end of that cycle, and we're going to see how that plays out, because we've put them in positions where. So I'll give you a little sneak on one of the characters. One of the characters has phasing powers, and while they were phasing through a wall, their powers turned off.
Ooh. That's dark.
Yeah. And one of the characters, she has the ability to turn her fist to stone, or metal, or other elements. She can't turn back.
Wow. Man, that's crazy. I can only imagine the repercussions and the things that can be explored through something like that, you know?
Right.
That's really interesting.
Right. So we have our one character, Interim. She has the ability to open portals that allow her to see a few seconds into the future, gives her an advantage in fights. But she can also use it as a step portal. So she can open a portal in 2 different places and have people step through them for like surprise attack or to pull someone out of trouble. She's been opening these portals since she was 6 and hasn't closed a lot of them. The one thing we say is that it's a door that's open on both sides, so we have no idea where those other portals are open to. But not only that, it starts to affect the time stream. So where she's from, it's 12 hours ahead of the rest of the world. So you'll be walking through the jungle or the village, and it's daytime, then all of a sudden it's night.
Wow. That's interesting. That's really cool. I like the way you're thinking about it, you know, and kind of the ripple effects that all of these different events can have on your entire story and the world that it lives in, you know.
Right. So we're just trying to play around with a lot of that stuff and make consequences for these powers, because they can't control them. We don't consider it a muscle memory, like, you know, like running fast or catching a ball is a muscle memory. In some books, the powers become a muscle memory where the character can just use them at their will. These guys can't. Sometimes they work in different ways and they think it's going to work. So it's dangerous to them, but not only them, but the people around them.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds very much like, you know, like drug use, you know?
Yeah.
And that you become a hazard to the world and the people around you sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And that's why we explicitly say that it's a drug, because it's the repercussions of your drug use and things like that. And that's where we're pulling from. And once we open up the Pandora's box on all this stuff and start revealing where these things are coming from, then it's really going to change the way people think about it.
Wow, that's really cool. So when you first started this and you were first thinking and planning it, was it always your intention to expand it out this much and have such a large cast, or did you originally imagine it as more of a streamlined story?
I mean, in the beginning, it was. I mean, this is something that I want to tackle a while ago, because when I originally was thinking this, I created hundreds of characters, and a lot of them fell to the side. A lot of them got combined together. A lot of them were pretty worthless because they weren't really fully formed characters. They were just abilities. So I would come up with an ability and then assign a character to it. I originally had a character who was a gymnast whose powers are activated at the Olympics while he was on the uneven bars or something like that. It was just silly. I'm like, what is this? What is this guy? What is his application of this thing going to do in the long run of the story? And it just didn't make sense, so he got erased. So it originally was a bunch of characters, then I brought it down to a smaller cast, and then the world just kept growing and growing, and there started to become factions. So it started to become a situation where everyone was joining the side, because the world was becoming more dangerous for them. So they had to choose up. They had to be on one side or the other. And then there were people who weren't choosing sides, who eventually chose another side. So it's become this big tired thing where we've got people working for the government. We got people working for corporations. We got people who may or may not be working for the government. They don't even know who they work for. We've got these secret factions, like similar to your Section 31 from Star Trek. We have things like that going on. So it's just a world that just keeps expanding and growing, and we just keep adding characters to it until it's just because it's so much fun just to play around with these different factions and where their loyalties lie. Maybe it's this side this today, and maybe somebody else's side the other day, and then we got Revenant in the middle, who will never join anyone's side because he hates everyone, he hates himself.
Yeah. That's really cool. I mean, I always enjoyed like Gundam Wing or what's the new, well, it's not that new, but the space show on Amazon Prime.
Expanse.
What's that?
The Expanse.
The Expanse, yeah. Or even Game of Thrones that was recently very popular, you know. It's very like faction driven, and that gives your characters a lot of I guess like a lot of gray area to play in because you know, each of these angles is technically right from a certain perspective, and so it allows your characters to kind of play in that pool of gray that's all through the middle of there. So I think that's really cool that you have different factions, and there's more to this than just like you know, government spies being sent in or just like a bunch of assassins or something. You know, it makes your worlds feel a lot more fleshed out because there's so many different aspects and angles to it.
Right. Well, I originally had written a story where we sent in the ninjas, but we do have ninjas coming in the story, but these ninjas are, for lack of a better word, I call them the fiends for those same kind of reasons, as they're on a drug that is driven them crazy, and they're just released out into the wild to just do dirty things.
Yeah, that's really cool. So like now you're even thinking about the you know, the other angles to drug use and how that can look different and take different forms.
Right. So we actually have it. So one of our corporates, the corporate sponsors, his name is Drake, actually creates a public version of the Edge that he's able to get past the FDA and get into the hands of other people. So yeah, we've got a lot of stuff that we're going to play with to try to wreck up this world that we've created.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like big pharma's moving in and stuff. That's interesting.
There's always going to be that one situation where there's going to be that guy that's like, how can I make money off of this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really cool. Like Martin Shkreli or Lex Luthor.
Yeah. Well, he fashions himself as that kind of guy, but he's a second generation rich kid. So.
Very cool. Yeah, I like that idea. You know, to kind of change your world up a little bit and shift it around.
Yeah,
because I mean the opioid epidemic, you know, it didn't start in the streets.
Yeah.
Somebody benefited.
Yeah, there's going to be, like, you consider the Edge to be your street version, and then you got the I call it the Verge, as the government and influence version of the drug that's retail.
Wow, that's really cool. What I guess like what draws you to that kind of theme and I guess like addiction and drug use?
I think it's just the world as I see it, and it's just like being in the public and listening to people talk and watching the news and seeing how things develop and how they escalate continuously. How it starts off at this little spark of something really small, and then all of a sudden it just blows up and escalates, and it's something that's all around the world, like this virus thing. And it's really weird that our original tagline for the Edge was "the infection spreads," and I haven't been able to use it since March of last year, and I'm thinking it's about time for it to make a comeback, because that's what it is. It's something that you don't know you have, except for a few people, and you're infected by it. And then it just starts to wear you down, and then you're getting to the end of it, and you don't know how it's going to end.
Yeah, that's a really interesting take on all of that. You know, that's interesting though. Like that you talk about kind of, I don't know that it's censorship, but you know, there's a certain disposition of people right now because of everything we've been through over the last year. And like I heard in Falcon and Winter Soldier, there was actually some kind of sickness or a virus or something that had been involved, like as a subplot, and they actually edited all that stuff out because of it came out now, and people are kind of tired of viruses and sicknesses, So apparently, there's a couple scenes where you can kind of tell there's some editing going on, but it's a weird world we live in because we just went through something that I don't think any of us ever expected to see in our lifetime.
Right, and like I said before, is that it changed the world, and it's still changing the world. And working from home, I mean, that gives me a little bit more time to brainstorm. But I mean, doing the commute to work is where I probably did a lot of my thought process on where I wanted the story to go, and then I would throw it over to Mark, and we go back and forth, and he gives some ideas, and I'd say, yeah, that works. And it's really a testament to his ability to churn out my madness. That in the time that we've been working together, I've only had to change one thing, and that was Blaine's hair. So in issue 1, he's wearing the longer hair as the gunslinger kind of guy, and I just had to get his hair cut. So we burn off his hair in the first issue, and then he comes back with the anime point. And it looks so good now with that little pointy thing on the end of his head, and it's to the point where I have to explain why his hair just stays like that. It never messes up ever. And all the other characters' hair is messed up, but his hair doesn't mess up. And it's just a little thing. So our one character, Interim, she has long hair. So when we update her uniform, we actually put a weight on her hair to keep it from flying everywhere in her face and everything.
Wow. Yeah, that's an attention to detail I never would have thought about, but that's really cool. It's a really interesting way to handle that.
Yeah.
So I mean, go ahead.
Oh yeah, fine. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna ask, like, whenever I guess like when you're scripting and stuff, like, how are you thinking about story, and how do you convey that to your artist?
So I don't do the Marvel way with scripting. I generally write out full scripts with sometimes bigger, depending on what's happening in that scene, bigger descriptions or smaller descriptions. Sometimes I can give Mark very little and just let him go to work and churn things out. But generally, it's a trade back and forth. So I'll churn out the script, I'll get it over to him, he'll do the art. Sometimes I'll have to go back and make changes if he decides on a different camera angle or a different panel description than I was using, just to fix the dialogue to make sure it fits in the page. So then after that, we hand it off to the colorists, usually Luis or Steven, and they do their magic on that. And then it goes to James for the letters. And it's just a team effort that, like, these guys are professionals. So I don't really have to do anything but say that here's a script, here's what I wrote, do your thing, and they just go to work on it and make it excellent. I mean, like I said, that in all the time we've had to change one thing over these years.
Wow, that's really cool. So is your team is this a local team? Do y'all know each other, I guess in real life, or is this a team you put together through the internet that you are kind of working around the world?
Yeah, through the internet. So Mark is in the Philippines, James is in Idaho, Luis is in Mexico, and I think Steven's in New York.
Oh wow!
So it's pretty cool. It's an international cadre of creators.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, that's the modern world we live in. You can reach anyone anywhere, you can find anyone anywhere, and we can make these kinds of things happen. So that's really cool. How did you find Mark?
Are you familiar with digital webbing?
No, I've never even heard of that.
Digital webbing is still, or might not be, is a like a creator forum. So you've got like pencilers work, inkers, colorists, movie stuff. So and they have like the help wanted or I'm looking sections on there, and I found Mark there. I believe I also met James on digital webbing. Luis, I found actually I picked up he does Ghostbusters for IDW, so I found him through IDW. And Steven I found just DeviantArt, I believe.
Oh wow,
So,
that's pretty
yeah,
cool.
back in the 90s, it was Pencil Jack and Digital Webbing were the two places where most of the creative people hung out on those forums.
Man, that's an interesting piece of history.
Yeah, I think
Are those
Digital Webbing.
websites still around?
I think Digital Webbing is still up, but it's a slowly transition into a Facebook group. Pencil Jack, I'm not sure about. I think that one might be gone.
Oh,
Like that's where Lead Killer came from. He was doing X-Men. Mark Brooks was from those sites. There's a few artists, Ryan Stegman and a few others at Marvel and DC who were on those forums.
yeah. Man, that's cool. That's interesting information. Well, is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Anything else you want to let anybody know?
Just let everybody know that issue 2 should be in previews. I believe that comes out this week. After that, we're going to go bi-monthly. So issue 3 should drop. What is that? What is it? May, July or August. So the first 4 issue arc is all about Revenant and his mission to kick Tartable in the face that he didn't get a chance to do in the first issue. So it's just a headlong, these 2 trains on this track, and this team is placed in the middle of this thing, trying to stop both trains from hitting each other, which they're not going to stop it. So it's going to happen eventually that these 2 guys are going to be face to face, and it's going to be a battle to the death.
Very cool. And what if anybody needs a copy of the first one? Is there any way to get those?
First issue is in shops now. So if your local shop is not carrying the book, try to reorder it. We are getting ready to do a second print. I think that should be coming out right after issue 2. But if they want to get in contact with me, I have special covers. So we have a triple cover that's not available in stores. Well, it's available in a few stores because they got it from me, but it's basically just available from me if you need to get that.
Cool. And where can we get a hold of you?
On Facebook, I am at The Edge Comic. On Instagram, I'm at The Edge Comic. On Twitter, I am at Marvin Wynn because someone has at The Edge Comic and they've never posted, and Twitter won't let me have that account for some reason. So I keep trying. Every couple of months, I go on to their help and say, hey, can I have that? No one's using it.
Maybe one day, right?
Right.
Awesome. Well, it's been a blast talking to you. I think The Edge is really interesting. I've been flipping through these pages this whole time, and it's just really cool, man. It reminds me of the 90s, but not just like 90s comic books. Like, it reminds me of like 007 from that era. It's got some like G.I. Joe vibes to it, and of course, a little bit of Marvel and DC flair here and there, and a lot of the like 90s image characters and stuff. So it's really cool. I really like this.
Oh, thank you. I mean, we're just trying to have fun, and we're trying to bring fun back, and just want people to just sit there, flip through a book, and just enjoy it. And then I'll blast them back with all the Easter eggs that I put in issue 1 that people are probably not going to notice right away.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's exciting. Everybody go out to your LCSs and, tell them they need to order The Edge, get this book in your hands, and check it out because it's a lot of 90s fun and a single awesome book.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.